But without further ado, let's get into it a little bit. I can feel the excitement. I can see how many people are in this room. There are thousands of you here. So there are a lot of people who are looking to learn about Wild Apricot's new email editor, and I am really excited to be able to present that to you. So let's move forward. I don't know if everybody has had a chance to interact with me over the years, but I'm Coach Mark, and I started with Wild Apricot back in 2015. Some of you may have seen me in some of the various Wild Apricot conferences and user experiences that we've put on over the past few years, like Personify, which last year was in Savannah, Georgia. And the next one is actually for 2020 is in Colorado Springs, and that's in April. That's at the Broadmoor Hotel. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's my favorite locale, and I can't wait to do a little bit of hiking in the mountains there. But you also may have seen Wild Apricot and myself at things like ASAE or some of the Personify Connections conferences. I also created the boot camp and a couple of the other training materials here on Wild Apricot. So you may have seen my face or heard my voice around at least once or twice. And when you put it all together, I've really helped thousands, if not tens of thousands of communities to grow. And I really hope that I can add to that list by showing you the new email editor here. Just checking the questions again. It looks like the sound is still a little bit finicky for people who are dialing in, but people who are viewing this via their PC seem to be having an okay time. So that's about as much as I can diagnose from where I am right now. I do apologize, but I will remind you that you will get a copy of this later, so you shouldn't miss anything. So for today's session, I kind of have a couple of goals in mind. First and foremost, I thought it would be worthwhile to recap some of the feedback we received on the old email editor, as well as what we've done to really take that, turn it around, and turn it into something new and exciting that we really think will benefit you a lot. So I want to show you everything that we have planned there. I also thought we would review all of the features of Wild Apricot's new email editor. That way everybody has equal footing and has a good idea of what to expect as they move forward with something like this. And of course, I do want to show you what it can do. So for that, we're going to be going live into the Wild Apricot test environment so I can show you the new email editor. And I will do my best to make a pretty email or two. I can't promise anything, but I have practiced a lot. So those of you who know me know that I'm very much more a musician than an artist, but we'll do our best here. If I can do it, then anybody can do it. Some basic housekeeping. So the length of today's webinar is really aimed or slotted to be less than 1 hour. Hopefully we won't go that long. I did not include a Q&A session with today's webinar for two reasons. Number one, there are thousands of you here, and I don't think we could actually get to everybody's question in time. And number two, the email editor actually hasn't been released yet. So we kind of are hoping that everybody will use today's webinar to whet their appetite, to know what's in store, to do a little bit of reading or prepare their environment as best they can. And then, of course, when the email editor does launch, we're more than happy to support all of your questions, feedbacks, comments, concerns. We'll do more training, et cetera, et cetera. So today's kind of a preview. It's kind of a state of affairs for Wild Apricot. I also want to show you what's coming in the next release immediately. But just to recap again, we will be recording this session and I will be sending it to you right after we're done here. So the specific agenda for today's session is as such. First, we're going to go through the old business. I figure that almost everybody in this room is used to doing meetings in this format. So first, we'll go through the old business, which is Wild Apricot's old editor and the feedback that we did use to improve the new one. And then, of course, I want to show you some of the features of that email editor. Some of the upgrades we've made, some of the differences you may notice between the old one and the new one, and the main benefits and what to expect right away. Then we'll go into program. I will put on a demo or two, and I will put my artist hat on to try and make a nice email. And of course, I'll walk you through the features as we're doing that. There will always be more training for this email editor after today. So there'll be more coming. We'll even use today's session to infer what kind of products and resources to make in the future. So I'm going to walk you through as best I can, but there'll be more coming, and don't you worry about that. And then, of course, I do want you to know what is coming next. So I'm going to talk about the rollout, what you can expect for your actual account, when you should start thinking about stuff like this. And spoiler alert, it's not tomorrow. Tomorrow's update is a little bit different. That's version 7.5, and you won't really have to do much homework for that one. But of course, I don't want you to worry. So we are going to go through the small changes that will appear in tomorrow's 7.5 update. We'll do that really briefly because it's only about 12 hours away and you will see them for yourself pretty soon. But finally, we'll wrap it up on where to get more help and how you can stay in touch with us to let us know about the feedback that you want us to consider for the email editor or any of the changes that we're making going forward. And I just want to confirm the audio is working. I have some people saying it's working and some people saying it's not working. So I have to assume it's working for some of you. All right. Apologies, folks. There's only so much tech support I can do while I'm leading this live. But without dwelling on that too much, it does look like it's working for a lot of you. So part one, old business. So I'm sure everybody has had a chance to use the legacy email editor at least once over the years. Truth be told, it was kind of good. I used it for many years. I think it's pretty great. I've definitely coached tons of you on how to be able to use that most effectively. But it's definitely long in the tooth. When you really think about it, and when we were kind of forced to look at the launch date originally, it's definitely over a decade old now. And it's performed really, really well in that time. I mean, over 5 million custom emails have been created, over 100 million emails have been sent with Wild Apricot, and it's definitely helped many of you collect those dues and event registrations that you need so badly to stay in operation. But in that time, we definitely were not blind to the feedback that we received as well. And in my capacity as a coach and trying to teach people and improve Wild Apricot as best I can, I definitely had a lot of experience with these issues as much as you have. So some of the ones, just to recap, and stop me when I've hit something that you've experienced, but we had complaints of unexpected mobile responsiveness in that the emails that you created didn't necessarily show up right on a small device. We also heard that the previewing was not always accurate. It was kind of related to that mobile issue, but you would make something, use the built-in preview tool to look at it, and then when it actually wound up in your email box, it would be ever so slightly different. I'm sure that one was a headache, and I definitely experienced that one myself. So spoiler alert again, but the new email editor doesn't have that same issue. We also heard that you were having issues with text formatting, being able to copy and paste effectively, and the big one was also the inability to use those columned email layouts. Actually, I know that for many years I've been suggesting as a workaround to use tables in your emails so that you can get multiple columns and really have a full control over your design that way, but no longer will I have to make that recommendation because the new email editor does it in spades. And overall, we just heard it was inflexible and people wanted a little bit more control, and that's what really we considered when we designed this new email editor. And to give you an idea, I'm sure that many of you know where the wishlist forum is, but we have definitely had a lot of chatter there over the years. And some of them were a little succinct and they were blunt and right to the point. Improve the email software, definitely can't argue with something like that. But they got more varied, they got more specific. Some were a little emotional, some were a lot more detailed in how it is that you could apply a new email editor to your everyday operations with Wild Apricot. And when you really put it all together, it gave us plenty of ideas on what we can do to just make your lives a little bit easier every day. One of the main goals is to enable you to be able to create emails in minutes, especially as volunteers, especially if you are not paid staff for your organization or you have another job or you have a life to get back to. I'm sure we don't really have time to spend hours creating emails, especially when there are errors in those emails. So we thought this would be a really good way to give back to you and enable you to really be more effective every single minute of every single day. So the ideas on how to take this feedback and improve the email editor really boiled down into a couple of main topics. One of them was to make it easy to use. We didn't want you to be an expert. We didn't want you to have to do any homework to be able to use an email editor. We know that, or at least I know that creative types don't always tend to be logical types. That's why we have two sides of our brain. That's why the world is such a fun place. But those of us who are really good at making art may want to just jump right in and have have full control over it. So we really wanted something that was simple. Anybody of any skill can use it. It's a logical design process. So as soon as you kind of grasp the concept, it's really easy to take steps forward and understand what it is you're doing, kind of like a bicycle. Once you manage to pedal forward, then you have all of the tools of the bike at your disposal there. And we also wanted to make it streamlined and quick. So I mentioned this, that we heard many issues of people just complaining that they had to take a long time to make emails when they really were kind of sitting down for an afternoon to schedule multiple emails or dozens in advance, and they really didn't have the time to do that with Wild Apricot's old editor. The idea behind something like this was to allow you to make beautiful emails in minutes, not hours. That way you can actually use that free time to accomplish things on your schedule and not on Wild Apricot's. And of course, this was a really, really big one, especially because it is 2019 and this trend does not seem to be going away, but a lot of people are viewing emails on mobile devices, whether that's a cell phone or an iPad or something else. Maybe somebody's viewing it on a large screen, like the Jumbotron, I don't know. And if you are doing that, let me know. But we heard many, many times from you that you wanted the email to be predictable. You wanted it to show up properly on every device. You wanted it to make sense how you were creating your emails and how they were actually being displayed. So when you really kind of put it all together, we put our Wild Apricot brains in a blender and put them all and got all of our ideas out as best we can for the new email editor here. So I don't have a drum roll to be able to play right now, but if you can imagine, please, a little bit of a drum roll, I'd like you to see the new email editor, and I hope you really like it. And consequently, it's hard to show the new email editor off because it is a minimal and simplified UI. So I put a couple of screenshots here, but you will see when it does launch on your account. It's designed to not have a lot of clutter. It's designed to be very simple and logical as to what it is it can do. And don't forget, we're going to jump into program pretty soon and go and see this for ourselves. So I'll do my best just to preview it as I can from here. But to get a little bit more detailed, and of course we will get much more detailed on our help site. This is kind of just a taste of what is to come for the email editor, but I want you to know what you can do with this new software. So first and foremost, it definitely has much greater enhanced flexibility over the old editor in terms of how you can control your email's design. So basically, when you do launch this new editor, you'll be able to right away create the overall skeleton and template for your email. That way you can just fit your content in as needed. It was kind of the opposite situation with the old legacy email editor, at least in my experience. You kind of had to put your content in first and then massage it so that it fit your the formatting of your email properly. And the new email editor kind of turns that on its head a little bit by making it much easier to conceive and really see for yourself how your full email will look and then fit the content inside of it. And it's also modular and flexible so that if you don't like actually what you've created and the overall look and feel of your email, and you want to change the content boxes and change how things are actually displayed, now you can just drag and drop them. So you won't have to really worry about losing any content. You won't have to worry about redoing your formatting. You can just take what you have, move it to a new location, and it is good to go. And I mentioned that it's a streamlined design, and of course that may feel a little bit minimal when it's just a blank screen, but that's really nice when you start creating your email and you don't have all of this extra stuff cluttering it up all over the place. Now it's pretty logical. You have your layouts on the left, you have your settings on the right, and the middle is all of your email design itself. There's nothing really else that you can get confused with on the menu. It's designed so that you can really focus on the artwork that is your email. And of course, it does have some usability features that are not present in the legacy email editor, but are going to be definite improvements as we go forward with the new editor. Things like buttons and being able to do dividers and spacers. And this one is my favorite, but you are able to do columns in your emails now. Yay, no longer do I have to recommend tables to people. This is going to make it so much easier. And of course, you're still able to do things like insert custom HTML if needed, although I think you'll find that in the new email editor here, you probably won't need to do things like HTML as much because it is a lot better designed and a lot more streamlined, and it will show up really well right away. And just to give you an idea of some of the features here that are new in this email editor, you are now able to define 1, 2, and 3 column layouts. And if you look on the left of your screen, you can kind of see the presets that are established already. We figured that somebody may want an even spaced layout between two columns, so 50% on the left, 50% on the right. Sometimes you may want what is kind of considered a sidebar, where the left-hand column is a little bit smaller than the right-hand one. You'll see what I mean when we go into product. But really, this will make it so that you can make emails that will show up on mobile devices, that will show up on desktop versions, and that will have that level of design and conception that will make them seem really professional and will make you seem something of a hero locally. The buttons, those are big ones too, because these are really, really good when it comes to your members finding them easily and being able to click through for them. So rather than just putting a link in your email at the bottom, something like click here to go to our membership registration site, now you can have a big old button. You can customize it with whatever text and colors you need, and that way it's really hard to miss in the email itself. And of course, you can link that anywhere you want. So if you want to link that to something that's off Wild Apricot, that's perfectly fine. If you want to link it back to your membership forms or event registrations, that's probably the best practice, and I think it'll work really well. The custom HTML, that's not going away, although it is a little bit modified compared to the old way that we did allow you to insert HTML. I will elaborate on that a little bit later, but suffice to say, for those of you who are a little bit of web wizards, or you happen to really like HTML, you'll be able to customize or to add custom HTML to content blocks as needed. Dividers, that one is really kind of simplistic, but it really was something that was frequently requested, and truth be told, I use them all the time now. Something that I basically never thought of previously in making all of my emails has become so ingrained in my everyday process that I really love them. I think they make things look really nice. So I'll show you how that works too, and how easy they are to add in Wild Apricot, and how much easier it makes your organization. The mobile friendliness, this one I'm going to elaborate on in a little while, because it is logical, and so I want you to understand the logic behind it so that you understand how you can make exactly what you want in your own email editor. It works a lot better now than it did in the legacy one, and it's really not that difficult to grasp, so I will show you some more examples there in just a moment. And then finally, I mentioned this a little while ago, but now you'll be able to adjust your layouts without losing your work. So if you want to move stuff around, let's say your footer of your email, for whatever reason you decide it needs to be right there at the top, and you do want people to see whatever that information was right away, then you can just drag that entire content box, move it up to the top of your email, and none of the formatting will get changed, none of the work will be lost, and that way you can organize things right away. I'm getting a lot of questions about the old templates and stuff like that, so I do happen to have answers for you, except I was going to do them right after the demonstration portion. So if you can just hold on for just a moment, I will make sure you're aware of what's going to happen to all of the old stuff as well. To elaborate more on the capabilities of the new email editors. So these are not necessarily feature improvements over the old one, especially because a lot of these things could be done as workarounds, but now they don't necessarily have to be done as a workaround. They're built right in. You'll be able to change them right away, and somebody who is even brand new to Wild Apricot will be able to grasp them and understand the concept pretty quickly. And that includes things like setting global site backgrounds, something that was kind of tricky sometimes when you were using the old legacy editor, and especially when you were considering adding different backgrounds for different content blocks or different columns, different rows. Now you can actually have individual control over all of that, and it's pretty quick and really easy. So that's a big benefit. That's going to make your lives a little bit easier, and it's definitely going to make it easier on your members' eyes if you're not sending them really garish backgrounds by accident. We mentioned before, but you can insert the links and the buttons. That's really nice, especially for a design element. I happen to think that the buttons are probably best practice in terms of getting people to click through on things in email. They are visually appealing, they have a really high click-through rate, and as much as you can use them, I would definitely recommend them. You don't want to put 100 buttons, but I will show you how easy it is to add one or two, and that way you can customize your own messages as needed. Then the button divider border colors. So you are able to customize all of the colors of your email, and that's so that you can get the branding as tight and as precise as you need it to be. I'll show you how that works, and hopefully it makes it a little bit easier for you to really feel like your emails are coming from your organization. The custom HTML, this one is, we talked about this a couple times, but just to elaborate on what I was speaking of before, right now in the new email editor, you can't access the backend HTML, but you can insert custom HTML on top. So that means that for those of you who are used to creating emails by going into the back end and creating different headers and all of the HTML code there, you won't have that right away with Wild Apricot. We're investigating maybe making it like that for the future, but suffice to say, the new email editor has all of that built in, so you can put custom HTML on top, but you can't get at the full custom HTML. And then, of course, this should help with some formatting improvements, like being able to pad and space your items a little bit more easily. The padding menu, for example, has been drastically changed so that it makes perfect logical sense now, and no longer do you have to read small gray print while magnifying it with a microscope. But you should be able to adjust it right away, and I'll show you that in the live demonstration in just a moment. And of course, you are able to automatically adjust image sizes or resize them as needed. The new email editor is really built for mobile friendliness and so that it displays properly on any device and any preview screen. And so it has a lot of logic built in to make sure that the images are displayed accordingly. But of course, you can adjust them as needed, and I will show you that as well. And this is the big one. This is the one that probably we heard most frequently as a complaint, but autosave. And the autosave logic and functionality of the new email editor is really sincerely, severely improved over the old one. In fact, now it's pretty much going to autosave all the time, and you shouldn't lose very much work at all. In fact, you're not going to lose more than 5 seconds of your work if something does go abysmally wrong. But the idea here is that you can start and stop at any time. You can create half of an email, go to dinner, and then come back and finish it later. And all of that should be much, much improved over the old legacy email editor. So I mentioned the mobile responsiveness, and I did just want to touch on how that will work with the new editor as well. And after this, we're going to go right into the program and start playing with some of these things ourselves. But I wanted you to have an idea of how you can think logically about your email so that it does show up properly on a mobile device. So what happens on the new email editor is that for mobile designs, the email is read from the top left to the right, to the bottom right in that order, the same way you might read a book, and it is displayed accordingly. So, for example, in this example, we have 1, 2, and 3, which are all denoted by separate colors, and as we view them now, they're read left to right, 1, 2, 3. They're all in the same row. It makes perfect sense as is right now. But if we were to view this on a mobile device, what's going to happen is that top left content box is going to be displayed first, and then everything else in that row will be displayed under it. So it's going to look a little something like this. You can see in the top, the desktop view, and this is basically how we would have designed it in the email editor itself. And then in the bottom, the mobile view, you can see that the top left item is displayed first, then the next one in the row, then the final one in the row, and then it would go down to the following rows. So this makes a little bit more sense with the following example. You can kind of see that in the top version, the desktop view is set up in such a way that this is one row, so A and B, C and D are all on one row. A and B are both in the same cell, and then in the next cell over to the right are C and D. And so how that's going to show up in the mobile view is the top left cell is going to be displayed first, and it's going to read top to bottom. Then it'll move over to the next cell in that row, and of course it will display top to bottom. So the final version of how this would look if you displayed it on a mobile is that A, B, C, D would show up A, B, C, D as top to bottom in a logical way. And on the color-coded example on the bottom, you can see what happens if you have multiple rows as well. You have A and B in one row, and then in the following row are C and D. So when you view it on a mobile device, it'll read the top left item first, go over the entire row, and then move down to the next one. So that means that for this example, it will show up A, B, C, D. And I hope that makes sense. It's really easy to play with this in the actual editor itself, especially because the preview screen does work flawlessly now, and we'll show you exactly how it will look on a mobile device. And we'll go into it in the demo, but I just wanted everybody to be aware that there is a logic behind it. Hopefully it's a logic you're very well familiar with, top left to bottom right, and it'll really enable you to make some really, really beautiful mobile emails. So let's go into a demonstration and show off what the new email editor can do. That's right. Okay, so let's just launch into the Wild Apricot test environment here. And I'll just make sure it's showing the right screen on, and it is perfect. So this is a wild apricot test environment. This is something that the developers especially created for testing new wild apricot stuff. So it may not look exactly like your account looks. It may not feel exactly like your account looks. It's pretty bare bones compared to the live version, but it does have this new email editor, and we can, of course, play with it there. So what I'm going to do is, and everything here should look pretty similar to what you have on your account right now. And I'm just going to go into the email section. We'll pick emails here, and then I'm going to hit compose email. So this is going to take us into the new Wild Apricot email editor. And of course, this screen may be familiar. We could select from one of our save templates. Because this is a test account, we really don't have anything saved. And what we're going to do here is we're going to design a new one. And this is what it looks like. And now you can kind of see why I had a hard time taking a screenshot of the email editor itself, because it's a very minimal display. And when you first start it, you can see that we have no email here. We have nothing to work with. It's very clear that we have to add more. And so what happens with the new Wild Apricot email editor is, and I did mention this a little bit earlier, you can create the entire skeleton for your email before you have to actually design the content. So what I'll do is I'll take a one column layout. So this will be one row of a column. It'll look like a rectangle like it does here in the left. We drop that at the top of our email. Actually, we have two now. And maybe after that, I want something a little bit different. Maybe I want the right sidebar, and then I want a left sidebar. Then we'll go for a 3-column layout, and we'll finish it up with a single one. And so it takes a little bit getting used to, but when you look at this design screen, you can really see the full skeleton of what your email will look like. Everywhere it says drop gadget here is where we'll insert our content when we actually start putting that into our email. But on a general level, this is basically the design and the template of the email that's going to be displayed and what we will be working with. We can use these big areas here on the sidebars, maybe to put in content. We can put a button here, and really the sky is the limit when it comes to your imagination. But let's show you some of the gadgets in the system and in the new email editor, and that way it can spark some of that imagination and give you some ideas for the future. So first and foremost, I think most emails probably have a company logo or image at the top. So I'm going to take the image gadget. I dragged it up here into the top menu. In fact, we can put another one here just so you can see how easy it is to insert. And a lot of this may be reminiscent of how Wild Apricot's site page editor will work, but you can see that you can actually just grab the gadgets and insert them anywhere you like. Picking an image is of course easy. We have several loaded in our files as it already, and we can just upload a new one as needed. Let's go with the Personify Wild Apricot one here. And here, instead of an image, let's delete that because we don't need another image gadget here. We already have Wild Apricot by Personify. So let's try a different gadget that's included. Let's try the new divider gadget. We'll take that, we'll drag it up here right under our company logo, and you can see that it puts a big blue bar in. What I can do is I can click that bar to go to the settings menu on the right-hand side of your screen, and we can start playing and adjusting with some of those settings. So instead of a solid bar, let's make it dashed. And instead of a blue color, let's make that orange. Perfect. You can even adjust the height if necessary. So if you want to make a really, really wide or thick bar, you can, or we can just leave it somewhere around here. This looks pretty nice to me. Let's leave it like that. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier that we've definitely improved the way that you can format your messages. So I'll just draw your attention here to the right-hand side of your screen, because you can see the way that the padding menu is displayed now for individual items in your email. Before, it was all on one line. You had to assess and read very carefully which box meant what, but now it should be displayed in a very logical way where this one up here is for the padding on the top, this one on the right is for right, left, and down. The audio over the phone disappeared. So I'm just getting some issues here that maybe the audio over phone is not working properly. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what's going on with the connection with the US or Canada phone lines. All I can really suggest is that the online version is working okay. So I can only apologize. I'll reiterate that you will definitely be getting a recording of this session, but I just want you to know that I do hear you. I just don't know exactly what to do about it right now. I do apologize. Anyway, without further ado, so you can see the padding. So let's make some adjustments here. Let's just play with the top padding. In fact, we'll just keep clicking it up until it makes perfect sense that the more we add to this padding box, the more space we get on the top of our divider. If we didn't want any space, we could just make that back to 0. In fact, let's just change it back to 16 so it's equal. And that's how you can adjust that. Now, a couple questions came in about how do you set things like cell or row backgrounds. So you can actually do a couple things. If you just click the background of your email itself, so I'm just clicking up here on top of everything where there is no content and no rows, then you'll see that you'll get the general settings for your email. And here's where you can do things like set the background color or background image. You'll also be able to define what kind of rule set that image has itself. So let's do something like, no, let's leave it, well, yeah, let's make it black. And we'll insert a background image here. Let's put the wild apricot, and it'll tile around. Not bad so far. In fact, we can kind of keep working from this. We're going to have to change our divider maybe to white just to make it a little bit more standardized. But you can see that we do have an email shaping up here, even me, Coach Mark, the musician. Now, I mentioned that you can change the background behavior, so you can have it tile, you can have it repeat vertically throughout the entire message itself. You can have it repeat horizontally across the top. I happen to think this looks quite nice when it is tiled, so let's leave it something like that for now. And up next, so if we want to show off some of the new features, let's check the button one. So I'm going to go over back here to the bottom left where the gadgets are located. I'm going to pick up the button and I'm going to drag it over here into the right-hand side of this sidebar that I made. And you can see that the button actually has the same settings menu, and the settings menu is located in the same place as with anything else. When you do click it, you'll see on the right that you'll have your button settings. You can change the link so that it goes somewhere else. Just want to go to wildapricot.com. Perfect. And now this button, it's when somebody does click it in the email, we'll send them right to wildapricot.com. And if I want to do things like change the color or the style of the button or the name on it, we can change the label. Click here. The position is in the center. That's usually pretty good, although we could change it to the right if needed. I like it in the center. And the button style itself. So here's where we can change things like the font. Let's change the font to yellow. Let's make the font a little bit bigger, and the button will be larger consequently as well. It will increase with your font. And we can change the actual font type here. We can change the font style, make it nice and bold, and of course we can change the button colors. So let's make this one, and green and yellow probably won't go so well. So let's try purple with a border. We'll make a nice dashed border for this, and we'll make the border color, what goes well with purple? Orange kind of goes well with purple. There we go. Click here. I'd say that's a pretty attractive button, to be completely honest. If I got this in an email, I would at least look at it, and hopefully it does have some good content on the back that I would want to click. You can change things like the background color for the button itself if you like, and that'll be for the whole row or everywhere that the button is inserted. But obviously you have lots of options, and you can make this look as nice as you like. So we got a button. That's all set. Let's go and insert some content here just so we can actually have something of an email set up. Welcome to Wild Apricot, and that's in black text. Obviously that's not going to work for us, so we're going to have to go ahead and change that to white. Welcome to Wild Apricot. We hope that you, and I don't think this is quite legible over all of my many apricots in the background, so let's just make this a bit bigger. Let's make it a bit bolder. Obviously you can actually see, that's a good opportunity to show that off. You can see that if I increase the font size here, let's say I made this huge, you can see that the actual layout and content of my email adjusts as necessary. So it's always going to try and preserve this column, or sorry, this row that you've created in which the left sidebar or has a right-hand sidebar where we put our button, and it will try and preserve that as best as possible. So if you want to be a little bit more creative without creating huge spaces like this on one half of your sidebar, you could always just insert another row under this and then continue your email as needed. So let's go ahead and do that actually, just to make this a little bit more legible. So we'll take out the second half of this message. We'll go up to the top of our layouts. We'll grab another one column layout, insert it right underneath, and then we'll put another text box and paste the rest of our message. And now I'll show you a couple of the other cool features that are inserted here. So the spacer is also something that's going to make it a lot easier for you to organize and design your emails. You can kind of see actually in this example, our button here on the right side of the screen has a little bit of empty space at the bottom. It's not perfectly in line because we've used such a huge font on the left-hand side here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the spacer gadget and I'm just going to stick it on top of the button here. All the spacer gadget does is add empty space, but it fills it in such a way where you can actually control how much space it is that you want there. So if I wanted this to be nice and center and look in line with my other side, I can adjust the spacer so that the height is a certain amount of pixels, and then of course it's going to look super duper. Now we'll probably have to wrap this up, so let's go ahead and maybe look at the rest of our email. This sidebar here, turns out we didn't need this, so instead of worrying about what to fill in here or having too much empty space, we're just going to take it and we'll click the trash icon so that we can delete this part of the layout. It's now gone and we can work with the rest of it. So now we have 3 columns here and then one at the bottom. Let's just put some images here in the 3 columns. That way I can show you how well it works with the mobile responsiveness after when you are actually looking at it on a mobile device. So I'm just going to insert some images really quickly here. We got three handsome folks here, big fans of Wild Apricot, and they really wanted to be a part of my email here. So we're going to put them in at the bottom. And in fact, let's take this bottom layout out. I don't think we need this one. I think we showed, oh no, I'll show off the custom HTML there. Okay, so in fact, let's do that. Let's grab the custom HTML gadget. Let's put it right at the bottom of the message here. And here's where you web wizards will be able to add some custom HTML if needed. I'm going to see if I can remember how to spell marquee. Is that right? M-A-R-Q-U-E-E? We'll find out in a moment. Have a nice day. Wait, maybe it only has one E. It seems to be auto-correcting that way. I think it only has one E. So we'll go ahead and save that. No, it did have 2 E's. Oh boy, Coach Mark can't spell. There we go. Okay, and we're gonna have to make that white as well too, so just so we can see it. Oops, that is an email itself. We wanna make this white. So we'll do this instead. And you can see, and I can't say that I recommend this, but you can see that you can actually put HTML into your email itself. And here I've put what's called a marquee. So it's scrolling text, and you can see it hoping that you have a nice day, just casually scrolling across the bottom of your screen. This is a good way to show off what you can do with the custom HTML, but this is Coach Mark's tip. I wouldn't put scrolling messages in your emails. They don't tend to be received that well. But if you do happen to have a really nice design, please do send me a copy because I'd love to see it. I think they're quite funny. But okay, now I did promise you an email, and I hope that it would be beautiful. And if anybody does want to hear me play some music, I'd be happy to show them that. But here's what we came up with during our little live session here. Can definitely be better, and I'm sure that everybody in this session, everybody in this room can probably make better emails than I can. So do me proud, everybody. Show me what Coach Mark has taught you, and come up with some designs that definitely trump what I have here. But let's go and show you how this will show up on a mobile device so you can see how the preview element works and how you can be certain that your emails are actually going to show up properly. So this much about the email design process and sending process is actually similar to the old legacy editor. We're in stage 2, which is the design element. So we're going to go over to part 3, which is the previewing section of this actual email. And you can see that by default, we are in the desktop version. This is going to look really similar to what we just created. Maybe it doesn't have those the little dotted lines to indicate what layout sections of the email we're actually playing with, but it does show you the email in its entirety. And you can see, for example, that this button that I've inserted does go to wildapricot.com. You can see that in the bottom left of your screen. You can see these handsome dogs, and of course, it definitely hopes you have a nice day still. Now, if we wanted to see how that's going to show up on mobile, just remember that it's going to take the top left element of your site. It's going to read all the way across that row, and like a book, it'll read lines that way, and it'll display as well. So when we do view this on a mobile device, these 3 handsome dogs down at the bottom will probably be displayed. In fact, they will be displayed. This one at the top, then this guy in the middle, and then finally the one with the tongue here on the right. And so if I click over to the mobile preview, You'll see that everything gets shrunk down a little bit, so it does fit on a mobile device, but it does still keep the same formatting. We have our logo at the top. We have the Welcome to Wild Apricot. There's the button that we inserted on the right-hand side. So just previous, I'll show that again. So previously it was on the left-hand column, we had Welcome to Wild Apricot. On the right-hand side of that column, it was click here for the button. So when we do see that on a mobile device, it displays top down. So the left-hand side goes first, Welcome to Wild Apricot, then the click here button. And you can actually see the same thing with the dogs too. So they were displayed left to right before, but now since it's a mobile device, they're going to be displayed top down. So you see Mr. Yellow over here, the smiley face, and the guy with the tongue at the bottom here. So that displayed all the way left to right. And now on a mobile device, it's going to go top down. And then at the bottom, of course, have a nice day. It really does hope you have a nice day. In fact, you know, I'm coming around to this marquee. Maybe you should put have a nice day at the bottom of every email. It'll make everybody's lives just a little bit friendlier. Okay, so that's about it. The rest of the email design process is actually really similar. You can define the recipient list, you can define subjects and reply to addresses. You'll of course be able to use contact lists. You'll of course be able to send this individually as much as you like. And then finally, you'll be able to review it, see the email again one last time before it goes into the information superhighway. And of course, when you're ready, you can click send, the same as before, whether it's an immediate send or you're scheduling it for later. Quick questions. Will the unsubscribe text still be automatically included in the email? It will. The reason we include the unsubscribe text in the bottom of the email is to help you stay compliant with a lot of the privacy regulations all over the world. It also helps us stay compliant with being able to send mails. So that's going to be included automatically. This is just the test server, so that's obviously going to be a little bit more customized. It's going to use the same one that you have now on the legacy email where it says, I can't remember exactly what it says, something like unsubscribe, powered by Wild Apricot, whatever it is there. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of questions here that are actually the next part of my presentation. So I'm going to jump back into the slides. And I'm going to try and answer a lot of these questions, hopefully before you have to waste your energy typing them. So what's coming next? And in here, I'm going to talk about the rollout for the emails, what's going to be changed, when the future elements of the site will be changed, and what you really have to expect in the next couple of weeks or months. So this email editor is planning to be released in version 7.6. We are currently right now today on Tuesday the 22nd in version 7.4. Tomorrow, version 7.5 is going to start being rolled out, and some of you will see the changes on your account starting tomorrow. Others will see it towards the end of the week. So it's really not that far away. In fact, it's really only one version away. So it's not too far, probably a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, just as we ensure stability. But I would keep your eyes open probably this year. As with all of our updates, this is going to be rolled out gradually, and it's going to be done overnight, at least for those of us over here in North America. And what happens with Wild Apricot when we do major updates like this is we do release it to the free accounts first. That way we can ensure stability and ensure that it is working fine on every single person's account with no issues and nothing that really comes as a surprise. Most of the time, in fact, 99% of the time, that's exactly what happens. And then once it's stable, we do start rolling it out to paid clients in batches. That way, if anything does go wrong, we can fix it for small amounts of people. So that'll probably start happening as soon as 7.6 is released. And as I mentioned, 7.5 is coming tomorrow, so probably within a couple of months. Now, important question. Your old email templates are not impacted, but you cannot modify them without switching. Actually, what will happen is they'll automatically switch to the new template. So this can be problematic for a very small and select few, group of you who have really intricate templates in the old email editor that, oh, I don't know, maybe you are really proud of them, you've done a lot of work, you've polished them off into perfection. I really think the new email editor is going to make your life a lot easier, but you should be aware that if you do want to edit those templates, you do want to keep using those things, they are going to be switched over to the new editor, and things may not copy over properly, but you should be able to adjust them. So that's really the only thing that I can think would be a little bit of road or a hiccup here, or a speed bump, or anything that may give people pause. But I do have a tip on how you can avoid that as best as possible, and what I would do in your shoes as well. So for version 7.6, only the email editor is changing. The event emails are not changing yet. They will in the future, but not quite yet. Same with the membership emails, same with all of the automatic emails in Wild Apricot. They're still going to be using the legacy email editor, at least for now, and at least while we launch this new one and determining what improvements and where we can really ensure that works well for all of the automated messages. So nothing is going to change for the old stuff, only the email editor itself is going to change. You don't have to go back and change all of your automatic emails. You don't have to adjust them. You don't have to worry that they won't be sent. Everything will be fine. It's just your emails from the email module that you send out manually. Now, there are some more facts for this as well, and I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, I'd love to do a Q&A, but the truth is that I may not have all the answers yet because it hasn't actually launched. But I do have plenty of facts that you can use to make sure that you are really prepared as best as you possibly can be. So here's a couple of Coach Mark tips. When you do open an existing email, it's going to be immediately converted to the new email format. Again, for 90% of you, that's a good thing because it means you can start working with them with more power than you had previously. But for 10% of you, it may be a little bit annoying. So there is something you can do to prevent your template from being switched over to the new email editor if you do need it and if you do need to hold on to it. So what you can do is you can schedule an email for the future, and as long as it is scheduled for delivery, it will not be converted to the new template. So what you can really do here if you need to, and I don't recommend this for everybody, this is honestly for the few of you that have professional grade templates that you definitely need to hold on to. You'll want to schedule it maybe for the year 2099 or sometime distant in the future. That way it doesn't get converted. It's always going to be there and you can adjust it using the legacy editor as needed. So again, it's a little tip. Not everybody will need this, but for those of you who do, that's the little workaround that you'll use in order to hold on to it just a little bit longer. I would think the most common scenario that would happen is that previous backgrounds do not copy over from old emails. And that's kind of because the new email editor has a distinct and separate and specific way to apply backgrounds to different sections of your message. So it's really easy to correct those errors. You saw how quickly we added our Apricot background to the old email. Really won't take you very long, but I just wanted you to be aware that if you do try and convert some of your old emails, you may lose those backgrounds, but you can always add them right away. And then finally, the big one for those of you who have been working with the workaround option, which is the tables on your old email, those tables are still going to be retained on the new email editor. You just won't be able to adjust them. And because the new email editor has its own way of creating tables and rows and columns and organizing your messages, and it basically doesn't use that old archaic workaround. So if that's what you've got used to, may be worth getting in touch with us so that you can help walk you through the new editor and just make sure you're super comfortable. But suffice to say, those tables won't be deleted, you just won't be able to edit them, so you'll want to get used to the new version. And because 7.5 is releasing tomorrow, and I do have so many of you in the room with me, I thought it might be useful to give you a couple of tips as to what to expect with the rollout tomorrow. As mentioned, not everybody will see these changes on their account tomorrow. They do get rolled out gradually so that we can ensure that nothing goes wrong. It's kind of like a canary in a mine. You want to make sure that there is nothing dangerous down there. And so we do call this canary releases. And by the end of the week, you should see it on your account. But there are a couple things to make note of, and they are kind of indicative of how Wild Apricot is improving as a whole. But with the website editor here, we're also doing something, or sorry, with the email editor, we're also doing something to the website editor that should make it a lot easier for you to use. And that's going to be that it's actually separated from the main Wild Apricot backend database admin stuff. It's not in a different program. You don't have to go anywhere else to be able to use it. It's just in a different section that's kind of it's more specific for the website itself. It's less confusing. All of the website options are in the same place. All of the menu bars will change to website design elements, and they won't have things like donations and settings and all the membership stuff up there. That way you can really focus on what it is you're doing. And this was requested by a lot of people because we found more and more of you were assigning website editors to help with your site, and you wanted to be able to provision them in such a way where they couldn't see your other content and didn't have a means of really accessing the other half of your site. And the other reason is we are planning to do some changes with the website editor. So this makes it a lot easier for us on the back end, and hopefully it makes it a lot more streamlined, less slow, and a lot easier for you to use on the front end. And so as a consequence, there are a couple of things that are a little bit moved, like the changes history button is now a little bit different. It won't be up there on the top right of your screen anymore, but it will still be in the hover menu for your website site pages itself. So you'll always be able to hover over something, see the changes history, and then of course revert back to any of your previous versions. If you do need to go back to your main admin menu from the new website editor, there'll be a big house icon in the top left, and that'll bring you back to the database portion of your Wild Apricot admin account. So if you do need to get back and forth, that's the way to do it. I just want everybody to be aware of where that is. And there's a new way to get help and support. It's all going to be in one central request bar. So rather than cluttering up your screen, you'll be able to click there and find the exact article or topic that you need to find, get in touch with us, call us, send feedback, and all of those fun things that help keep the world moving. And then finally, the website settings are going to be in one place. They're not going to be all over the place anymore. They'll just be in one section of this new website bar that'll be there in the top right. And I didn't include it here, but I do have, one more happy thing to share with people, and I forgot to put it in the slides, but the print icon is coming back. So if you are one of those folks who likes to print very often from your site pages or from anywhere on Wild Apricot, really, then that print icon is coming back. You'll be able to print. Don't forget, try not to waste too much ink, too many trees, but you can print your heart out. Okay, so part 6, where to get more info and help. So this one is a little bit tricky because it hasn't released yet, and we're still working on the help site pages, and I'm still coming up with some training. I'm going to be adjusting the bootcamp to include the new editor. I might do some more live sessions like this where we go through everything itself. But as always, we are looking for your feedback. And if I can make one note here, if you'd be so kind as to maybe wait until the email editor is released, just to give it a chance, that'll really help us to create feedback that'll be applicable. I guess right now it would be all kind of just nice to haves, but we're a little too far in development there to change too much as is. So it will be launching pretty soon. Make sure you stay in touch with us with your feedback. Let us know how you find it. If you do, hopefully you won't find any bugs, but let us know about those. And if you do happen to enjoy it and you find it saving you tons of time, let us know about that too. It helps infer what kind of updates we make for the future and helps us to really meet your customer service needs when you let us know what is working as well, so we can improve on those topics. And as always, we do have support at wildapricot.com available as our email address. So anything that comes to mind, even now, please feel free to get in touch. The rollout date, I don't think anybody will have a more specific rollout date right now other than version 7.6, but like I say, that'll probably be in a couple of weeks, probably no more than a couple of months. And there are a couple of really great help page articles that are being designed right now. So I know that Steve Andrews, the picky apricot, has been putting a lot of effort into making sure that this is these help pages are as descriptive as possible. We know that change is difficult for anybody, and we don't want you to feel like you're alone here. So we really do want you to feel like you have a lot of support. And there are two really great articles here. I know that it's kind of hard to memorize this URL, but the names of the articles are Switching from the Legacy Email Editor. That's the one for those of you who are really used to using the old email editor and you want to know what to expect with the new one. And then the other one is more generalized, which is using the new email editor as a whole. And as I mentioned, more training videos are coming soon. So if you do want to get in touch with us and let us know what works for you, if you liked this webinar, if you like the bootcamp, if you like Personify, if you like these opportunities that we're really trying to put out there for this training, then let us know so we can do more of them, or let us know what we are missing so that we can also fill in that gap. Basically, just let us know what we can do to help you as best as we possibly can. And then just finally, I think we're almost at the top of the hour, but just to remind you, a copy of this webinar will be emailed pretty shortly, and you should get that from an email address that'll come from GoToWebinar. It's usually something like customercare@gotowebinar.com, and it'll have a link that goes right to the webinar's recording itself. I think you have to put your name and your email on that page, but it's not going to restrict you from viewing the video. I think it just wants to know who you are, so you can kind of put anything there, but please feel free to view that at any opportunity. And of course, share this with your communications people, share this with your membership management people, share this with anybody who would benefit from having an easier way to make emails. I hope you saw that although my email was not it may not be Leonardo da Vinci caliber, but it's definitely closer to Pablo Picasso, and it really only took us a couple of minutes, and I was going slowly so that I could show it off. So I really think that you'll benefit from this. I think that once you get the hang of it, you're going to be able to just pump these emails out looking great, looking professional, save the templates for later, and save yourself tons and tons and tons of time over the course of a year. That's my goal. That's what we're looking forward to. I hope you have the same excitement, and I hope you have the same experience as you move forward with the editor. But that's about it from me, Coach Mark. I have to thank you for all of your time. I know it's a Tuesday. I know it's the afternoon, and many of us probably have jobs and real lives to go back to now. So I can only thank you. I always do, for being such heroes for your community, for your members, for yourselves. There may be hundreds or maybe 1,000 people in this room, but when you factor in the members that you serve, I'm really trying to help tens of thousands, if not more people, have an easier way to read your association's emails, have an easier way to get in touch, an easier way to find your events, an easier way to make donations. At the end of the day, I hope it is an easier way for you to relax and put your feet up. So from everybody at Personify, from everybody at Wild Apricot, from all of the coaches, all of the support people, and basically everybody that has given me the ability to say thank you, I want to thank you personally for being heroes, for doing what it is you do, and for being champions. This is Coach Mark. I hope to talk to you more soon. You'll see more training from me and from everyone else at Wild Apricot. Thanks so much. Have a really great Tuesday. See you again soon.